Hello again. Today is Sunday, October the 13th, 2013, and it's about 4 o'clock my time. And today I wanted to talk about polls and polling data. And I've talked about polls and polling data and how I feel about them before, but I particularly wanted to talk about a poll that came out late Thursday evening, early Friday morning last week, an NBC News Wall Street Journal poll concerning the government shutdown. And NBC News and Wall Street Journal newspaper got together, as they often do, and did a poll, a survey poll. And in that poll, there were approximately 800 people polled in that poll, and they were asked a series of about 13 questions, and it was related to the government shutdown, and they answered those questions accordingly. And a majority of them answered them either unfavorably or quite angrily. To sum up the poll, and I'll link it in the description section or in the about section of this video. But roughly, majority of them, the biggest majority of those people polled, which again were 800 people in total, uh, disapproved greatly of the government shutdown. And who would? Uh, there's only about supposedly 85% of the U.S. federal government functioning. About 15%, roughly 14%, of the federal government has been closed down now for about 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks this coming Thursday. And who wouldn't be upset about that? But we talked about polls and polling data, and I'm a fine print guy. I like to read between the lines, I like to break things down. I just don't take things at face value, accept things as they are. I like to delve into it and get into it, and that was one of the very first things that I did when I heard about this poll, as it came out over the press wires and over the main and alternative news media streams. And I began to break the fine print down, as I said, and look at it. And one of the very first things that I saw on top of the poll in PDF form was exactly how many people were polled. And I contrasted and compared that to how the main and alternative news media streams had been top billing it as some sort of overwhelming fact. And that everybody and his brother who is concerned with this government shutdown, either in the United States of America or in the free world at large, has got an opinion about it, and they're none too happy. Uh, I can understand and certainly empathize with, in some regards, the tug of popular sentiment. But what I don't have any regard for or respect for is how these polls are skewed and the way in which they are presented as fact somehow. They are not fact, they are fiction. They are designed to gin the unlearned, those who only occasionally watch the news or who pick up the news going in and out their front door of their respective home. They don't get into and are not able to get into the fine print, and they just accept whatever somebody is telling them, either over their television screen, over the internet, over the airwaves in their car, whatever. Okay, because they don't, for whatever reason, have time in their daily life to read the fine print, to get in between the lines, read in between the lines, and figure out exactly what it is that's going on, and exactly how many people have participated and responded in this poll. And another thing I find it of interest, NBC News and Wall Street Journal, they conducted this poll with a Democrat pollster and a Republican pollster, and that's fine. But there was no independent pollster involved, no decline to say pollster. just Democrat and Republican. It was done over a 2-day period. That averages out, I guess, as I understand it, it's 800 people, so I'm assuming maybe 400 and 400, 400 Democrats, 400 Republicans. Another thing, too, supposedly a majority of those that were polled, the 800 people that were polled, a majority of them were furloughed federal workers. They're supposedly registered Democrat. Majority of them spoke to were Democrats. No Republican, or well, hardly any Republicans of note. And then a few smattered in among the midst of independents or declined to say. Um, Respectfully, it's not reflective of what's going on here in the United States of America and what is happening in the United States of America to the average person out here, to the average family out here, to the average concerned citizen out here. It's not reflective at all. And I found out today, earlier today, on the Sunday talk shows, NBC News and their political news director, Chuck Todd, who I just love to pieces, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, is going to be doing a series, or is doing a series of more polling concerning this government shutdown and the overall breakdown of how they feel, how the average person supposedly feels, how representative government really and truly is reflective of them. With Esquire magazine, of all people. That's fine. I got no truck with Esquire magazine. It's a decent magazine. I've read it many times, seen it many times over the years. I've had family members that have subscribed to Esquire magazine at one time or another in their life. But it's interesting to me, it's rather interesting to me that they've commissioned Chuck Todd as the political news director for NBC News, NBC, Universal, Comcast, GE, whatever corporation, ALEC, period. Okay, by the way. But they commissioned Mr. Chuck Todd and Esquire magazine to get together and do an expose, a formal study on the how the average American citizen feels about representative government. And I would venture to say and hazard a guess, it's not going to be good. Okay, but if it's only going to be on the average and on the whole of 500 to 1,000 people, um, it's not germane. Okay, as we speak right now today, there are 330 million people living on the continental United States, excluding Alaska and Hawaii. There are 330 million people living in the continental United States. Okay, of those 330 million people, 220 million regularly and actively participate in the electoral process. My question is this, and it goes to whoever's listening to this video, it goes to Chuck Todd, it goes to NBC News, it goes to Esquire magazine, whoever else within the sound of my voice, and this is my question, okay? How is it possible, rather, okay, for 500 to 1,000 people with a good landline connection or a good cell phone connection to be able to speak for 220 million people who regularly and actively participate in the electoral process of 330 million people alone living in the continental United States? How are we supposed to accept, take at face value, take you at your word, accept that the fact that you know what you're talking about, and that these are a majority and a clear-cut pejorative of Americans, here who are adversely affected in some way, and believe it or not, everybody and his brother in some way, shape, form, or fashion has been affected by this government shutdown. I understand that, okay? But how is it that 500 to 1,000 people can speak for 220 million voters? How is that possible? And if somebody wants to answer that up, this is an open forum. Post away. Post away. I welcome the debate. I welcome the advice and counsel, the supply and advise, the advice and consent, the consent of the governed. Post away, comment away, all you like. Okay? Let's have a debate. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it. Okay? But I want to know how it's humanly possible for 500 to 1,000 people on average now, with either a good landline connection or a good cell phone connection that participate in these polls, okay, to speak for 220 million Americans. And then on top of that, the 500 to 1,000 people that participate in these polls, these quote-unquote random polls, okay, the majority of the polling is done either in New York City, Washington, D.C., or Los Angeles, California. That's where a majority of polling is conducted, in one of those three major cities. I got no problem. I got no truck. East Coast, West Coast, all points in between. Love it all. Okay? Love New York City. Love Washington, D.C. Love Los Angeles, California. Okay? Been to all three places many, many times in my life. Okay? Anywhere and everywhere. Okay? But how is it humanly possible for Washington, D.C., for New York City, and for Los Angeles, California to speak for the rest of America? And only 500 to 1,000 either Los Angeles, New Yorkers, or DCans. These are the only ones that speak up for America writ large. And somehow this is supposed to be reflective of the political, social, and ecumenical conscience of the United States of America as a whole. As a whole. With all due and proper respect, I call bullshit. Call bullshit. So, I don't know what the deal is, and I really don't care. But there is no way under God's Son that this can be reflective of the writ large population here in the United States of America. Right now, as we speak today on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., there's supposedly over 1,000 people of all shapes, colors, and sizes meeting on the National Mall now because they're fed up and ticked off that national monuments and national parks have been closed in Washington, D.C. and all across the United States of America because of this shutdown. They're also upset, too, that a lot of them out of work, they're federal workers, they've been furloughed. Their jobs, for whatever reason, in the private sector because of this government shutdown have been affected. They're disgusted. Okay? People are disgusted. And that, to me, coupled with the response that I've gotten on an open petition that I have to impeach one John A. Boehner as Speaker of the United States House of Representatives to bring formal articles of impeachment against Speaker Boehner and have him removed from office entirely because he has to do with this government shutdown, okay? Because he has allowed a certain sum and a select few to dictate to him and to tell him what it is that he is going to do and what it is that he's not going to do. Okay? The 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is the bread and butter of federal governance. It is the play-by-play book for how the United States federal government is supposed to function and operate and be reflective, truly reflective. You want to talk about a poll? The Founding Fathers wrote a poll in the 14th Amendment. Okay? It is a piece of famed literature. The United States Constitution writ large is a piece of famed literature, but the 14th Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, is a stalwart in governance and how representative governance is supposed to act accordingly, okay, and how they're supposed to operate on behalf of we the people. And when they fail to comply with what is laid out and what is dictated out, and has been dictated out and has not of yet been changed since 1789, when the last Constitutional Convention was conducted, okay, in July of 1789, when they do not and have not ultimately and responsibly dispersed and distributed governance through the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause that are contained in that amendment, then we the people, writ large, have every right to petition our government and say, enough, that is enough. Okay? It's time for you to move on. So you want to talk about polls and polling data and the political, social, and ecumenical conscience of the American people writ large? I want you to go to moveon.org, and I'll link my petition in the About section, the description section of this video as well. I want you to go there, and I want you to look and see and read the nearly 5,200 names that have been affixed to that petition to remove one John A. Boehner from office. Okay, and read some of the comments that have been offered up. They are anything but sweet. They are anything but compassionate and caring. They are demanding forthrightly that John A. Boehner not only be removed from office, but that he be hung. Okay? He be hung. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.